Okay, so this is Pilots Squawking, a podcast about flying, the people who do it, and what it's really like behind the headset. I'm Dale, and in each episode, I'm going to sit down with pilots from across aviation, from students to instructors and beyond, hear their stories, their experiences, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Today, I'm joined by Sammy Lovett, a microlight instructor shaping future pilots, and someone with a really interesting perspective on what it's actually like to teach people to fly. So, welcome, Sammy. Thanks for joining me on the podcast and being the first ever guest on the podcast as well. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
No, thanks very much. So I first came across you, I think I just joined the BMAA, I think in December, and I got the January magazine, and searching through, there's like this 4-page spread on you. So obviously reading through that, we're going into a bit more detail about kind of your journey, but obviously now you're teaching people to fly.
Yeah.
What's something that people would be surprised by hearing someone who's an instructor? Is there anything that springs to mind?
Surprised by what, with learning?
Yeah, and teaching people. Is that something, I guess people think that teaching people to fly is different, perhaps it's even different to what you expected before you wanted to be an instructor. Now doing it, is there something that'd be surprising for people to hear about?
Yeah, I guess I'm surprised by how many times I say pitch for speed and power for altitude throughout the day.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've recently started, well, it's been about 12 weeks now, teaching for British young pilots, just the ground school stuff and doing the sims. It's the same thing. You know, it's hard to understand. Well, I want to go down, so I want to push down, right? Well, yeah, but you're going a bit fast now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just to understand a bit about you then. So how did you get into flying?
I initially wanted to paraglide around the world. So I booked a paragliding course, and the weather was bad for about 8 weeks. So I realised I needed an engine. So looked up the cheapest way of flying, and microlights was the way to do it. And as soon as I had my first lesson, I was like, wow, this is just the most amazing thing I've ever done. And so yeah, I started working 82 hours a week, I think, for at least 3 months before I started bringing the hours down a little bit to start paying for it. And then after work on a Saturday, I'd get down to the flying school and do my lessons. And yeah, it's great fun. It's a interesting path, isn't it? Learning to fly. It's like really hard and really rewarding. All the things all at once.
So you touched it. We'll come back to that a little bit about the kind of how you funded it, I guess. But so what was your kind of training journey then? So were you, it sounds like you're working during the week and just able to do stuff at the weekends, or could you get some like bulk sessions in the week? Because I know some people go on these boot camps, don't they? They just magic themselves away, and then many weeks later they somehow come back from Florida or somewhere and go, look, I'm a pilot now. But most of us, it takes a while longer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I was working 7 days a week. So after work on a Saturday, I would go down and do an hour or two. But because it's England, obviously the weather's not very good. So I think it took a year to get the hours done. But yeah, we had so many lessons cancelled, but we got there in the end. So it was good. And
did you have a really kind of standout training moment during your training? Was there a moment that really stood out to you from memory?
Yeah, there's a few near-death experiences. There was quite an interesting moment where it was quite high winds, and my instructor was like, "Oh, I think we'd better cancel." And I was going, "No, but I want to fly around the world, so I need to learn how to fly in high winds." And what he should have said was maybe learn to walk before you run. And there was a massive tree on final, and I was so focused. He kept saying, don't, get blown into the tree, don't get blown into the tree. I was so focused on not hitting the tree that as I came down to land, I forgot to land the plane. So I just had it at, I just didn't pull up, I didn't round out. I just kept driving into the ground, and we both, like in the last second, just grabbed and pulled up.
You didn't hit the tree though, so that's a good thing.
Didn't hit the tree, didn't hit the ground either. So it was a win-win, really. But
yeah. That's one of the things. Yeah, I've only recently started flying microlights, I think about 10 hours of microlights, and that's definitely the one thing that I'd never appreciated is, I mean, it makes sense, right, because it's a lighter aircraft, but you don't, I think when I did the last differences training, it was quite windy, and I said to the instructor, oh, we're good to go up. He said, oh, if you're comfortable. I'm like, yeah, I've flown in wind like this before, in a Cessna 172, and then when you switch, you're like, oh, it's a little bit more bouncy. So yeah,
Yeah, you feel everything, don't you? Every
yeah,
thermal,
exactly. Yeah,
every little bit of wind.
that's definitely a standout moment. Yeah, nearly. At least didn't hit the tree. And what in your training journey? Where was there a point where you really felt, yeah, now I'm a pilot? Did that happen during your training, or not till you finished?
No, not until there's not really a moment. Like even once you get your license, you still don't. It doesn't feel. You're still like you've still got a lot to learn. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still learning loads now. So um, yeah, it's not like a moment where you can go, oh, okay, I'm good. I still don't feel like I'm a good pilot. Do you know what I mean? There's still so much that you're learning all the time. I think it's going to be like that all my life.
Yeah, no, I think I've, speaking to lots of pilots, what I think's good. Maybe I'm just speaking to the good ones, but that lack of ego is a good thing, right? I think, because I think if you, in your head, you think you're some amazing something, then you're probably going to make mistakes, aren't you, or be complacent with certain things. So
Exactly.
that constant learning journey is definitely the right mindset, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that I've pulled off where I've been quite proud of myself. Like if you land in crazy crosswinds and you're like, "Hey, I did that. That's really cool. That's
Yeah,
nice." But there's
I
also
do know what I'm
stupid
doing.
things.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I didn't die. That's
yeah.
really good.
And what licenses do you have then? So you said microlights. Did you go the NPPL route or?
Yeah, that's all I've got. So MPPL with a instructor's rating.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And then what aircraft do you fly? I think obviously I know from the article that you're instructing, but do you have a share in another aircraft as well, or what aircraft
Yeah,
do you
I've
normally
got
fly?
an Azena CH601. She's a little low wing. She's, I don't know, I describe her as a budget Eurostar kind of thing.
Okay.
She's the really affordable, but also a little bit faster. Not a huge tank. She's only got 50 litres, so it's quite hard when you're going on long journeys to make sure you've got enough fuel. But no, she's really good fun. She's not as stable as a C-42, which makes her more like you're actually flying. The C-42 kind of trained people to have like a hands-off. You can get it all in trim and take your hands away.
Yeah.
And you can fly a C-42 without your hands, whereas CH-601 you can't. But yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah. And how do you? And so when you're doing the teaching, though, you're using the C-42 most of the time. Is that at the school? Is it or something?
Yeah, that's at the school. So I work at 2 airfields, but CH-601 you absolutely wouldn't want to teach on. So yeah, that's
So that's, I guess, moving into kind of, I guess, what I think's it's all interesting, but more understanding about kind of what you're doing kind of day to day. So what does flying look like for you today? So like you mentioned, you've got your license, you're now also an instructor as well. So what does, including the weather, like today, it's nice and sunny, but it's pretty windy, so not
exactly.
ideal. So what does flying look like for you today?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because, I mean, I'm used to working in the film industry where you don't know what you're doing next week. And now I've turned into, I don't know what I'm doing the next day or even the next hour. So that's a really interesting way of living your life because, if the weather's not right, you can't go flying. Sunday, I got to the flying school and I couldn't start the plane. So I got there at 8:30 in the morning. First student was in at 9. We sat in, couldn't get the plane to start, whatever I did. And then everything started getting pushed back. So by the time I got the aircraft started, and then you end up flying all day, which was great. And then I didn't land with my last student until 8:25. So it was really nice because you get to see the sunset, but it's long days. So it's kind of like you make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
And so
Good and bad.
you mentioned about the, working in the movie industry. Is that something you still do? Or are you just instructing, like, your days and weeks? Is it a mixture of aviation and something else, or just all aviation now?
It's all aviation now since August. I haven't worked in the film industry, but when there's another film come up, then I will go back and do that. There seems to be less and less sculpting work. I think partly because AI, they're getting really good at CNC printing massive large set pieces now, so they just need 4 of us to put it together instead of 40 of us to make it. But I'm hoping there will be something coming up in June, July. But yeah, we're getting kind of longer and longer breaks at the moment. So it's great to have flying to go in between.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know, obviously, here to talk about aviation, but what kind of stuff do you do? Obviously I know what sculpting is, but I'm sure I don't understand what that means in the movie context. Are you is it making parts of the scenes and things, is it? Or props and what have you?
Yeah, like dyeing set pieces. So usually rocks or trees and things, but we can do spaceships or beaches or, all sorts. So kind of giant sets out of polystyrene. You normally use a hot wire to cut them out, and then you use a hammer or nail brushes to shape them. And then the painting team will come and paint them all. All sorts. Done things for Snow White and House of Dragon and Star Wars.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah. I'm sure you probably know. I think it's something similar to what you said. I watched a lot of Adam Savage, tested in San Francisco. He worked on Star Wars and all sorts of things, didn't he? And it just fascinates me how all that stuff. But like you said, I think unfortunately most things, AI seems to have replaced a lot of things, doesn't it? Or at least people think it can, and then I don't think it's as good as people hope. But there's a revival of humans doing things as opposed to computers, don't we?
It's a shame, isn't it? Because as soon as all the jobs go, I don't know what everyone's going to do, but it does take out a bit of the creative element. And so far computers can't match what humans can do, but how long it's going to be until they can, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was a US podcast I was listening to where they were talking about, I think it was the FAA were discussing about AI replacing pilots. Not completely, but do they still need to have two pilots in the cockpit? And I think some quite senior person was like, listen, we still need two humans doing human-y things. You can't just offload it all because, computers go wrong, don't they? So
exactly. It's like that thing with the 747s where they just kept pitching down if it wasn't for the pilot to pull them back up.
Exactly.
You need the people to step in when the computers go wrong.
Yeah, I think we've gone from some strange world where I love technology, but now it feels like it's going too far. Maybe it's because I'm a human and I'm scared about my existence. I'm not sure, but okay. So obviously from your own experiences with flying and instructing, is there something that you think people don't expect about flying that then when they come to do it, even if it's just like a trial flight or when they start to learn, people have a certain idea in their head, don't they, of what flying an aircraft might be like, and then reality kicks in, and some things, at least in my experience, some things are easier and some things are like, whoa, that's much harder than I expected. So is there any examples you have of that?
Yeah, I think when people go on navigation, they have this idea of, oh, great, I'm just going to learn to fly and fly myself to the beach. And they don't realise how much planning is involved, how much airspace you need to get around, how much radio you need to be doing to be listening out and aware of, and just how much work it is. I think, a lot of people just think, oh, you just get in the plane, you wiggle the stick and fly it around, and it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about, when I asked you about certain experience that stuck into your mind when you were doing your training, outside, it could be still part of training, but outside of that, is there any kind of definitive aviation moment that kind of sticks with you in your journey so far?
Oh, I've got so many kind of stupid and fun things that I've done. One of which being, so I did my instructor's course in the Alps, and you have to do a bit of spin avoidance, and I put her into a spin in the mountains. That was quite exciting, and I was trying to get my words out to try and, because it's all about getting the words right, to teach flying. You can't keep using different words. And it took me so long to remember the words while we were casually just spinning down into the mountains. And finally got the words out. And the instructor was really calm. He's so good. And he was just like, not ideal, was it? So no, I need to get quicker at that next time.
Is that, so I've looked at it as well. Is it Marcus?
Yeah, Marcus.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, I want to do this is why I've started to fly microlights. I want to get my microlight instructor rating as well, which we can probably discuss a little bit as to, like you said, about the cheaper ways of doing things. But I've spoken to him. I think he seems really popular. And when I spoke to him, I think in January, he was like booked until October or something. So whether something will happen this year. And then I don't know if you found the same thing, is there's not many people instructing instructors, is there? And to then find someone in the UK that, one, is capable of doing it, second, willing to do it. And I spoke to a few and they're like, oh, we do it, but only Saturday mornings. and you're like, that's going to take a while to like
So,
we'll get through the syllabus, but then also maintain it and make the progression. So
exactly. Yeah, and I couldn't recommend Marcus more. He's absolutely brilliant. It's really good, and it's such a beautiful place to learn to fly as well. To fly around the mountains.
yeah.
Amazing.
And so a couple of questions on that, if I may. Then, so you're instructing in a C-42. I think when I looked at Marcus's website and what I fly at the moment is a Skyranger. The Skyranger Nynja. You might not want to answer this one because it's highly debated, perhaps. But what's better, the C-42 or the Skyranger Nynja?
I mean, they're both very similar. They're both high wing. They've got Rotax 912 engines. They're very, very similar. So yeah, I mean, there's not a lot in it. C-42s are more desired by flying schools, but they're both stable aircraft. They're both great for teaching in. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I find, again, not having loads of experience, I think I've only done like 3 hours in a C-42, so more of it is in the Skyranger. I felt like the Skyranger just felt slightly more stable, not like night and day. It felt like the C-42, was easier to fly, where the Skyranger requires a little bit more rudder and
In fact, that's a really good point. Yeah, exactly. The Skyranger does need more rudder, which is good because the C-42 does promote quite lazy behaviour in terms of using the rudder because you just hardly need it. So that's a really good point. Also, it's really hard to stall a C-42. I was doing this lesson the other day and I was like, so we're going to be careful of really slow flight. We're just pulling back. I was like, at some point she's going to stall. She's going to stall, like when she's stall. And it's like, it's hard to prove the points of, stalling slow flight is bad because they just don't stall. So actually to have something a little bit less easy to fly would make you a better pilot, I think.
Yeah. And in the Skyranger you learnt for your instructor rating, where was the flaps control? Was that in the ceiling or by the seat? The reason I asked the question is, again, I've not started my instructor rating yet, but in the Skyranger I fly, the flaps is like a handbrake by your seat, and you can only just kind of get it with your right hand because it's kind of closer to the the P1 seat. So my brain already goes trying to get at that kind of that's going to be awkward to try and get at it. Whereas I've seen some Skyrangers have it in the ceiling, don't they? Where it just click. But
I can't remember with Marcus's. I've no idea. I can't remember because there's Zen Air. She's got it by your feet, and that's kind of an awkward one because you can never have your seatbelt tight because otherwise you can't reach and get them. So there's that's a bit of an awkward thing. But then I also don't like that in the C-42 the throttle's between your legs.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's not good. Like in the Zen Air, the throttle is just a switch and you can lock it or unlock it and it's there. And that seems like a lot more of a logical place than between your legs where things get knocked and Yeah, I
think there's definitely, again, with my minimal experience, there's much more variance with the microlights, isn't there, in terms of control structure. The common thing is you've got the stick in the middle, but where the throttle is, or where the flaps are, or where some it's between your legs, it's over there. On the Skyranger, it's like you're doing a bingo machine, not bingo machine, one of those old Vegas cash machine things where you just see if you get the right numbers and everything. So yeah, it's very odd. And so I guess what would be interesting for me, I guess hopefully for listeners, is understand just at a high level, when you decide you want to be an instructor, what is that process? Because my understanding is there's some kind of ground school exam you have to do. If you could share about that, I think you have to do a flight test to make sure you're a good enough pilot to even be considered to do the training. And then there's obviously the training and all that. So could you help us understand a little bit more about if someone does decide they want to be a microlight instructor, what do they have to do and what's the experience like and how could they kind of prep for it?
Yeah, so you need to do 100 hours P1 first of all. Then you need to do your pre-instructor's exam, which is a little bit like all your 5 exams, your 5 ground school exams wrapped up into one little exam. So it's kind of a little top up. So if you brush up on your ground school, then it should be fine. I think there's like as far as I remember, there's like a triangle of velocities in there that you need to do, and there's a little bit of MET, a little bit of LO, a little bit of aircraft tech, and a bit of human factors. Then you just go fly with the instructor. You're firstly on the other seat for the first time. So they recommend that you fly with someone else beforehand to get used to being on the other seat. I didn't actually get a chance to do that, but I found that bit not a problem. In fact, I was so used to flying my Zen Air that I found it harder to go from, I was so used to low wing and her controls and the speeds of her, landing speeds, everything was so different that actually going back to high wing and a Skyranger was the hardest part rather than just changing the seat for me. But yeah, so then they just get you to do a little bit like a GST, of a bit of faster, a bit of slower, same altitude, you know, what your controls are like. And then, that gives him an idea of where you're at. But then in your training, you go through all your lessons. So I don't know if you remember, but you've got kind of your exercise 4, which is the effects of controls, exercise 6, straight and level, exercise 7 is your climbing, descending. So you go through and you teach all of those. So he gives you ground school throughout. You normally go flying in the mornings because you're flying in the mountains. It's better to fly in the mornings before the weather starts getting very unstable.
Thermals,
ground. Yeah, exactly. And then we do ground school in the afternoons, but it's also very much of how you teach, how you structure your lessons, what kind of things you need to be teaching in your lesson, how you demo the exercise, then you give them a talk through, kind of an assist, and then they'll practice it on their own. So the hardest part for me was learning the words. He's very strict, you know, you reduce your power, you increase your power. You're not allowed to say decrease your power because otherwise that can be misunderstood. So getting the words right and using the same ones all the time. You know, if you're going to keep saying stick, but you're also going to say column, but you've got to just have one thing. Right. So that was the hardest part for me, is getting the words out. And then after that, once you've done them all, you've also got to do your 20-minute briefing of the lesson beforehand on the whiteboard. That's got to be presented in a certain way. You've got to have all the explanation correct and tell them what you're going to be doing for your lesson. And then, make lots and lots of notes, do lots and lots of studying, and prepare for the hardest exam ever at the end of it. So you can't do your exam with the person who's done your course. Right. So I drove back to England and did my exam with Chris Coppell in Manchester. I walked in at about 7:30 in the morning. We got going. I can't remember what I did. I can't remember which lesson. So they'll tell you what lesson it will be on the day. So you need to be prepared that it could be any of them. So you give them your briefing and you go flying. You fly the lesson, but they're also going to throw in a few more things. So you also do unusual attitudes. You also do, you've got to do a PFL. It's a bit like a GST, but you're teaching it instead of, so he becomes your student. So I think that was about an hour and a half of flying. And after that, you have the whole afternoon, like the whole rest of the day is grilling on every single bit of ground school. So you memorize all those books, like all the AFE books, the Pooley's books, memorize and get them in your heads so that you've got such a good understanding that you're able to teach it. So they're not just asking, do you know the stuff? It's how well do you know it that you can teach me? And I think I walked out of there at 5:30, and I couldn't push them going. I was so tired. I think we had a half-hour lunch break, and it was literally all day of just. So I was so relieved that I passed that. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, just listening to that, my brain does this weird thing where, as you're saying those things, that I'm going, I don't think I'm smart enough to do that. And then the other part of my brain as well, other humans do it. It can't be that hard, sort of thing. But it's just, I think for me, it's like you said, I appreciate the importance of having to explain things clearly. I think my brain works definitely in a more, I can do things. Mm-hmm. Just necessarily, someone says, well, how do you do it? Oh, you push down the downy thing, don't you? And you just turn the twiddly or the thing. And that's how you land,
Exactly.
So, whereas you can't quite because someone's twiddly thing might be that someone else's dangly thing, and you just don't know what's going to happen, do you? So, no.
Yeah.
And for those, obviously, if you're a student, there's, I guess, obviously you can read all those books, can't you? Obviously, which you need to do for your ground school exams. As an instructor, how do you prepare? Because I've got one of these flight instructor manual, big, massive blue books over there. But is there such a thing as, a microlight instructor prep guide or a mock exam thing so that you can prepare yourself? Or do you just try and learn everything and hope that you can memorize it enough so when they say, so explain this, you can go, oh, yes, I think I remember that bit, but I spent more time on air law, so that was going to be the hard questions.
Exactly. I mean, Marcus was really good with me because he would just keep firing questions. So Sammy explained that. So because there's normally 2 of us on the course, so while one person's going flying, the other person, okay, explain this and put it all on the board. Explain to me this and put it on the board. So he'd give me lots of practice questions so you have an idea of what kind of stuff's coming. And then I had a friend who's very kindly would let me explain things to him. So I'd be like, right, I've learnt about the phone effect today, so I'm going to try and explain that to you. And I have a full understanding of the phone effect, but to try and explain the phone effect, it means you have to go all the way back to ELRs and what ELRs are. And then, So it's really good just to try and find someone who's willing to listen to you so that you can explain it. Especially if they don't know anything about aviation in the first place, because you have to then go back to, okay, you don't know this bit, therefore you need to know this bit, and then build up. So that was my way of doing it, was, teaching my friends, which was good, and just writing it all down, just keep going over it with whiteboard and trying to explain things. I was parked up, so I was in my van, I was parked up next to the river on my own, so every night I would sometimes just set up my camera if I couldn't find friends that were willing to listen to me every night, and have my van as my whiteboard, and I would just talk to my camera and explain it as if I was the student. And it meant that I could look back at the video and just have a look and see if I understand it or where I was getting confused, and then do more research if I didn't feel like I had enough understanding myself to try and teach it, and then delete the video and start again the next night. So it was just putting the work in, you get there.
Yeah. And what is, now you are an instructor, what is the reality of being an instructor? Is it everything you'd hoped, not what you hoped, more, different?
It's tricky because so I love having what I call proper students. So we have a lot of the BYP. So the flying with the kids is really sweet. They're lovely, but I'm not learning how to teach as much as I would like to be. So because obviously I've still got the restriction on my license. So until I've done my 100 hours of teaching, which is coming up soon, but then I also need to have 10 months of being a flying instructor before I can redo the whole exam again. And then, lift.
You'll do the exam again? What?
That whole horrible day I just explained.
Yeah.
In order to lift your restriction, you have to redo the entire exam again with potentially a different lesson, and then you lift the restriction. And then you have to do that again every 3 years as well. Just
in theory, though, my brain says that should be easier because you have been hopefully instructing, haven't you, for 100 hours. So as opposed to not instructing, in your case, I'm assuming 3 to 4 weeks of drowning in instructor-ness. At least now you'll have had 100 hours of actually doing it for real, as opposed to pretend instructing and being scrutinised in the air and on the ground and everything.
Absolutely. I think it will be easier because also, like, I'm now more aware of the C-42, the speeds, I've been flying it a lot in the unusual altitudes. I'm more familiar with the aircraft, which is good, because last time I'd gone from my Zen Air to then flying the Skyranger, and then I did my exam in a C-42, and I hadn't flown a C-42 in years. Right. So that was a bit like, okay, I'm going to figure this plane out while I'm doing my exam, which was fun. But so yeah, it should be easier. I think they make it harder for you with the knowledge that it should be easier. So they'll pick a slightly harder lesson, but that would be quite good fun. The problem is with the British young pilots is that you're not doing the unusual attitudes with them. You're not doing 60-degree bank turns with them. So I've got a few students where I get to do all of that kind of stuff. So your performance climbing, descending, all of that stuff, where it's going to help me to do the next exam. You have to have taught all of the lessons before you can re-examine as well. So yeah, with the British Young Pilots, it's lovely teaching the kids. They're so sweet, but I'm not developing my learning as much as I'd like. So that's the small issue there.
And talking of students, I guess BYP aside, well, perhaps even not, but are there any interesting kind of student behaviours that you observed? Because in my head, even with the kids, hopefully you're teaching people, in theory they want to be there, right? Because that's why they've put themselves out and they're spending that. But I didn't know if there's any kind of interesting student behaviours that you've experienced as an instructor that you might never have imagined that, someone would do. Because you read things online, don't you? And I guess I've been fortunate not had it myself, but you read online that people want to be a pilot, then turns out they get sick. And lots of people, apparently, you read they can get past that, can't you? But part of me would go, you think you'd worked that out before, wouldn't you? But as we know, going on holiday and not feeling sick is very different to being in a 500 kilogram aircraft getting blown into a tree and making you feel a bit sick.
Exactly. There's a few. I've had 2 kids throw up so far. Luckily, they told me just in time, so that was good. Always fly with a sick bag. But yeah, the older the student, the longer they take to learn things. 100%.
Right.
But the kids just learn things like that. I think part of it is because they don't drive cars yet, so they're not so used to thinking, okay, throttle makes me go faster. So they don't have these things locked in their mind. But also, because they're flying the sims, some of them are just... I couldn't believe how quickly they do get it. And you're like, but whereas on the other side, if you're flying with someone who's over the age of 70, it could be a few hours for them to learn straight and level, which, it just doesn't make sense to them with the small power changes and the little bits you need to do. And I think once you've got it in, it makes sense, but it takes a while to get that kind of moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, obviously, my experience with the BYP kids is even in the first term, just teaching the wings stuff. I know it's on the sim. I think different people have different opinions on the sims. I know it's Xbox, but still, yes, you don't get the feeling, but you get appreciation for certain things, don't you? And the fact that after 10 weeks, they're all pretty much nailing it, landing everything. You're like, okay, that's pretty good. And then when they have their experience flights, being able to translate some of that is amazing, isn't it? How they can pick stuff up so easily. But
yeah, the only thing is, because I teach the BYP kids in the schools as well, and the only thing I'd say is that the simulators will let you get away with murder.
Yes.
And that's they're not using their rudders, and I keep trying to encourage them get in the habit of using your rudders because you're going to need them when you're in a plane. The landing speeds, you can change your landing speed and it will let you. Yeah. So I'm like, in real life, you're not going to be able to get away with that. And they come in really low. And this is the thing as well. I'm like, right, get a bit higher and try and land with no power and start practicing your glide landings. Because if you had no engine, that's how you'd be doing it. Instead of they've got a few habits where the simulator will let them do things that I wouldn't.
And I think the other thing I struggle with, again, just on a slight BYP tangent, is at least for my kids, it's an after school thing. You've obviously only got an hour to try and mix sim time with the boring ground school stuff. They just want to be on the sims, don't they? And it is hard to, because I struggle with it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be educational, and some kids are there because they want to do what I call Xbox Club, and then there's some kids that actually want to learn, but you've got to try and balance it out, haven't you, so that it's enjoyable for all. But I think it's great that they're getting. Not all my kids have done, an actual lesson. Yeah, probably about 50%, but guaranteed the half that have, they're the most that are more engaged, and when they come back from that, they're even more engaged. I get it. It makes sense, and the guy did it, and
Yeah, it's the nicest thing. Taking a kid up for the first time, they're super excited. I had one that was like, oh, I'm going to fly a plane, I'm flying a plane. And it's just so lovely. What a great job.
Yeah. Yeah. And have there been any kind of surprising moments for you as an instructor? Again, things that you didn't expect would be that way as an instructor, but now I've been doing it for however many months. Something that's kind of surprised you?
Nothing that springs to mind.
No. And I'll just go back to the one thing that you touched on earlier with the instructing, that you said you found that actually going from the right seat wasn't that different. I still have planned with my instructor to do some right seat to get some familiarisation. But again, I'd be interested to get your perspective, seeing as you do it. My brain goes, it can't be that different. I'm just sat on the other side, so sight picture will be a little bit different, but just from the right, and landing will be slightly different just because from the right. Because in my head, other people have said to me, oh yeah, but the controls are different because you're different hands. But then my brain goes, well, yeah, but when I fly the Skyranger, I'm throttle on the left, stick on the right. When I fly the Cessna, I'm yoke, so left hand on the yoke, right hand on the throttle. So I'm doing those. So my brain goes, well, I know how to do those things anyway, so I'm probably setting myself up for failure. But my brain goes, it can't be that different. Where everyone goes to me, oh, Dale, you wait, you get in the right seat. Oh, it's so different. But my brain just can't really understand how much different it's going to be. So
the main thing I'd say is you're used to when you're turning, you're higher in that seat. So your perspective of the horizon changes slightly.
Yeah.
So that's the main difference, is just the perspective of the horizon. But aside from that, no, as you say, the controls are all in different places anyway.
Yeah.
I personally did not find it an issue at all. And I swap seats all the time. So if I'm in my Zen Air, I've got toe brakes only on the left side. Okay. I will fly that on the left-hand side. If I'm on the C-42, I'll fly that on the right-hand side. So I think it's quite good just to keep changing. But it's like when you drive your car in Europe. Like
exactly, that's what my brain thinks. Yeah, I'll let you know after, and I'll go, I screwed it up. I ruined it. Is there anything in terms of decision making that's changed in your life? So since you became a pilot and definitely became an instructor, obviously decision making is a key part in many aspects of flying. Is it whether you go flying, decisions you make in flight? Is there anything that's kind of changed in terms of how you think about things, in terms of risk and making decisions? Because I think you said it earlier, but also in the article, I think there's that sense of danger and excitement that you have. You want to do somewhat exciting / dangerous things. So has that changed now that you're a pilot, or not really, because you can just get yourself into even more danger easily by being up in the air?
I've learned to plan ahead a lot more. Certainly when I first became a pilot, I wasn't really working out my fuel to get to places. I always had this thought of, okay, I'll just have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And if I don't have enough fuel, I just land in the nearer airfield. And I was a lot more kind of, we'll see what happens. Obviously, the more you fly, the more you get to know your aircraft. You get to know how long that fuel tank's going to last for. But there have been times where I've landed, I've had to take off in the red because the airfield that I landed at ran out of fuel. So plan A didn't work. And then you're going off finding somewhere else to get fuel. So yeah, what I'd now do.
So your sound has gone really quiet there for some reason. Not sure. That's it, it's back now. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I got a phone call just as that came in, so it cancelled it.
No. Yeah, so you're saying you're taking off in the red because the fuel wasn't available?
Yeah, exactly. So then it's finding airfields on the way back where there's fuel from the aircraft. It's just like, because I'm rushing to get back because it's sunset and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was all just a bit like too stupid, too brash. And now I plan before I go. I sit down and make a list of, these are all the airfields with fuel. These are all the airfields radios. These are all the radios I might need on the way, and etc. So I just plan ahead a lot better now.
Yeah, that's good. So management of the risk as opposed to risk avoidance.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Cool. So just coming back to kind of what you kind of alluded to right at the beginning of the interview. So you said, when you decided that you wanted to become a pilot and fly the microlights, you were working like 80 odd hours a week. So I think a lot of things that either people have asked me or I see online is, learning to fly is really expensive. How are you supposed to pay for it? You can only do it if you've got rich mummy and daddy, all these sort of things to people from different perspectives. And I think obviously we all know even though learning to fly a microlight is cheap, it's nothing in aviation is cheap, is it? That's just face it. And so, you know, if you want a career in the airlines, you're definitely looking at probably 100 grand if all things come into place. But so for you, and if it helps other people as well, I think like anything, if you really want it, you make sacrifices and you do things, don't you, to make it happen. So how did you then go about finance it and figuring out how to do it as you were going?
So yeah, it was. I worked back to back on films for years. I was working 12 hours a day, and 7 days a week. So I slowly was putting the money together. I kind of had a realization that I was working so much as well that I wasn't really living, and so I thought, right, I'll start making the dream of flying around the world come true, but baby steps. So get a bit of savings. Start doing the lessons, and once you start, it becomes incredibly addictive. So I couldn't really afford to do it when I started, but if you have too long a break between your flying lessons, then it ends up counterproductive in terms of your money saving, because you kind of end up having to backtrack and recap. So actually, if you can try and do it in a chunk and keep practicing and keep it current, then it's a much more affordable way of doing it. If you're working crazy hours as well, though, you also need to bear in mind that you're going to be really tired. So there's a lot of times where it probably didn't take me as quickly as I thought it would, because there were times where I just turn up and my flying instructor would just look at me and go, "Sammy, look at you." I'm fine.
I can do it. It's good.
Exactly.
I've got matchsticks.
Yeah, so we'd be doing circuit training, which, as you know, just really gets it out of you when you're learning. Nothing comes naturally to you, so it seems like there's just stuff going on at all points. And every now and again, he'd just fly me out of the circuit and say, "Right, just breathe for a minute and try and wake up, and then we'll go again." So that was quite good. But yeah, I feel like if you want anything in life badly enough, like, you just work hard and put in the hours, and you will get there. It's just not easy. I started out in supermarkets and restaurants, and slowly you get there.
Slowly get there. And now you're teaching. Was there ever a point during your time as a student pilot that there's ever a point where you think, "Hey, I might not be able to continue," either because of finances or stress overload, just thinking this is too hard, or I can't get my head in the right space with work and everything else? So not just it could be financial, could be not financial. Was there ever a point that you just thought, as much as I love it, I just might not be able to continue?
I'm not that way. I don't think like that. I never give up on anything that I set my heart on. But there's definitely times where, for example, you've learned finally how to land, and then the weather changes, or it suddenly goes from summer to winter, and everything changes. And so you have to relearn how to land again, and you have to relearn how to land again the next week when the weather changes again. So there's little moments where it's like mini wins, followed by, okay, I've lost everything again. So it's really like demotivating when you're like, "Oh, I think I finally got it." And then you go back and you're like, "No, I didn't." And it's kind of, that's a really tough part. But it's the same as learning absolutely anything. Like, the more you know, the more you realize how much you didn't know. And then that's part of the journey. So it feels like you're getting worse as you're getting better. So that's not good, but you get there. And also, the harder the challenge, the more rewarding it is at the end. Like, that feeling, that first solo, that's so amazing. It's so good. And it's not scary, because it's actually peaceful, because for the first time, the instructor's not sitting next to you, nagging you all the time. And you can just focus, and you're quiet, and it's just like epic. So it's all worth it.
That is amazing. And I think that's, again, like you said, everyone's solo is special, I think, for different reasons. I think for me, the three things I remember was, wow, how quick this aircraft gets up with only me in it. I'm not a light guy, so I was like, wow, that's quick. And then secondly, like you said, just how quiet it was, because you've got no one correcting every minuscule. You're half a millimetre off track. It doesn't make any difference. Just stop nagging me. And then I think the thing that I found probably more so on other things, but still on the solo, is some realization. I think for me, it's probably, right down the end of the downwind, that realization that just kind of goes, I actually know what I'm doing. I mean, you know that, don't you? Because you wouldn't have been let loose but on your own, but you're kind of like, I actually know what I'm doing. I'm calm, and I know, I'm not freaking out. And that's when you kind of realize, maybe it is all in there somewhere. It's available when you need it, as opposed to, I still remember the first circuit I ever did, like you kind of alluded to. How can you do all the instructors going, okay, you got to do brakes and stuff. You're like, there's not enough time to do all these things. And then when you know what you're doing, you're like,
yeah,
I could probably make dinner and breakfast and pack a suitcase. And still not on final yet, but it's weird how that time dilation happens, isn't it, when you're a student?
Yeah, exactly. Because you're still focusing on the speed, and like once you become better, you start looking at the horizon, and that is your speed. So once you know that, but that takes a long time for it to lock in. That's where it visually should be for your speed to be that to land. But before that, it's like you're looking in the cockpit, you're looking around, you've got all your checks. I remember that being quite stressful. But yeah, and I've forgotten it actually, and now you're teaching it. There's moments where I'm like, okay, you focus on that, and we'll share the workload, because otherwise it's like too much for them. And I'm like, I remember this part. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember something my first instructor ever said to me, which always still sticks with me, is he always said his job as instructor was to treat me like an elastic band. And every lesson, just to stretch me a little bit further, not enough to snap, but just a little bit, to just expand my comfort zone every time. That always, as he started telling me, I'm like, what you on, elastic band? What are you on about? But it's true that and then I had other instructors where, using his analogy, they definitely snap the elastic band. They'd snap it, and I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you'd land thinking, this sucked. And the instructor goes, you didn't do too bad today. And you're like, it didn't feel like it. You just, I want to quit. So I think that's the different personalities have different ways of doing things, don't they? Trying to find a good instructor.
Yeah, I remember my instructor saying to me, at some point in this course, you will cry. I thought, nothing's going to make me cry. And then one lesson I just thought, I'm not going to cry, but I think that's the wrong attitude. Like, I like the elastic band thing. I like to, on the first few lessons, I don't give them much of a workload, but I slowly hand over responsibilities. Okay, now you need to be checking your NOTAMs. And then the next one, okay, now you need to be checking weather and NOTAMs. Okay, now you've got to be doing life checks. And slowly hand over more and more, but let it be gentle and not let it be, like my instructor was quite shouty, and I don't appreciate that. I think that later on in your training, to have a bit of pressure and be able to deal with pressure is good, but to be shouted at is never, ever, ever good. And I'm not that kind of person. So with my student, it's good to be tough, but be friendly and understand their learning. And nothing's their fault. It's, if anything, actually, as an instructor, it's your fault. You need to change your teaching to work for them. So learn from other people's mistakes.
And obviously, we just touched on kind of how you kind of funded and went through your journey. In hindsight, is there anything you do differently now? Would you still say to people, no, look, if you really want to work 80 hours, do this, or would you say, in hindsight, I would have done things differently, or are you still happy with how you kind of went about getting your license?
It was the only way. I think there's no perfect time to do it, so just get out and do it. Winter, there's not going to be much flying. Like, as a full-time flying instructor, I flew for about 4 hours in February because it was so bad. So think about the time of year where you start, and bear in mind that you're going to have a bit of a break during those seasons. But just got to go out and do it, however you can do it.
Yeah.
But
no. And then, what, in your opinion, what makes a good pilot?
Good planning. Better planning than mine. Able to multitask. You've got to be doing a few things at once. You've got to be paying attention of what's going on. And how to deal with things when they start going wrong. So just staying calm under pressure and just going through, okay, this is happening, what's the next step? So, some students are excellent at planning, but sometimes I'll just let them get lost. And their planning is incredible, their flying is incredible. The second that they get lost, they just don't know what to do. I mean, I think that happens a lot, particularly in flying microlights, is things can go wrong. Engines can fail, and you've got to think on your feet in those moments, and just stay calm and just deal with it. There's always ways to get down. It's always
it just becomes a heavy glider, doesn't it? That's what I tell myself.
Exactly that. Yeah, and so much of your training is engine failure. So there's no reason for it to. You shouldn't be flying over a city. You should never be in a situation where you can't get down. So just calmly get down if that's the issue,
I think you mentioned it earlier that especially people I speak to that obviously aren't into aviation, I know obviously part of our training is to do the stalling, and as you mentioned, I say modern aircraft, obviously a Cessna 172, the ones I fly, it's older than I am, so it's not modern, but like these planes don't want to not fly, do they? It's hard, and I often think, obviously I know we have to teach these things because rarely the worst can happen, but you're nearly ripping it out the ground, aren't you? And it's still not stalling. You're like, come on! Like to me, it's I think something that people don't appreciate is while obviously aviation does have danger and there are risks, that plane doesn't want to not fly. You have to work really hard or do something quite stupid to make it not want to do the thing it wants to, isn't it? So like you said, even when just because the engine stops running, again, not ideal, but that's not the end of it. It's like, well, the plane still wants to fly and it will happily glide for a given period of time with the right speed and everything to get you somewhere safe, won't it?
Yeah, I think Mac, who's 94, he started the Airborne Aviation Flying School with Popham. He was telling me that I think it was about 100 engine failures in his time, and that's partly because he started flying when there was two-stroke engines, which are less reliable. Right. But every single one was fine. Like to have that many and know that you can get down, absolutely fine. But it's not the end of the world. I think people will stall mostly when they're coming into final. I see it quite a lot with the students where you just pull up the plane because you're trying to stretch your glide because you want to get over the trees. Yeah. And that speed is important and speed is important. Yeah. And so it's like glide stretching seems to be the main issue, and obviously that's the point where you're low to the ground. So that's the only issue where, stalling can be a problem because you're too close to the ground.
Less time to recover, yeah. So what do you love most about aviation?
Oh, the views, the adventures. I've seen some of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Like if you go flying and you've got low-level cumulus clouds and it's sunset and everything just turns orange and you just fly above them and there's loads of surfaces to the ground, so you've got plenty of places to get down, but you just feel like you're in heaven. Whenever I'm a little bit down, I'll just get in that plane and just fly around and everything just melts away. You realise that nothing matters. It's just like the world is so beautiful. And to be able to just spin the plane around at 60-degree bank turns and do a load of fun stuff. It's like freedom and excitement. And I fly over to Pembrey quite a lot, to the beach, or nice. Sandown, and just pack up my little pack lunch and go off an adventure. It's great.
And what do you think could be better in aviation?
What could be better in aviation? There could be. It's a shame that there's so many airfields being shut down. That's a bit sad. I think it's a tricky one because flying lessons are really expensive, but I have to say flying instructors do not get paid much at all. So that could be better. Like my friends that work in the gym as a personal trainer get paid considerably more than I do as a flying instructor, and they didn't spend all the money to get the licenses. So that's hard. It's not affordable, but you can kind of understand why. And the British weather could certainly be a lot better.
I wasn't going to touch on it, but as soon as you mentioned it, I think obviously I'm biased as well, because obviously I want to make a living from aviation. And I don't want to join the airlines. Well, for a couple of reasons. Not something that interests me, but also as older, I don't want to relocate and move my family and things. But I was just saying to someone just the other day that it's kind of crazy where if you ask anybody, is aviation expensive? Everyone would say yes, even if they don't know. Just the conception is yes, which is true. I know that airline pilots perhaps don't get paid as much as they used to back in the day when, a BA pilot was like a king. It's more people are doing things. But obviously the salaries are much better in the airlines, understandably, because, you've got all those souls that you're responsible for and all that sort of thing. But, and again, not asking you to disclose anything about your personal situation, but, you read about, how much do you earn as a microlight instructor or an aeroplane instructor. It's £45 to £50 an hour is what I'm told is the rough amount, which I think some people might go, £50 an hour, that's loads. Well, yeah, but you're only getting paid for the time you're in the air, not, yes, you've got a student for 2 hours, you might only get paid for 45 minutes of those 2 hours, and then it's raining, so you're not getting paid then, and you think, you're getting paid not a lot really in the big scheme of things to either give someone the ability to enjoy stuff, which is great, or join the airlines. Everyone starts at the same place, don't they? And I think, obviously being biased because I want to make a living from it in the future, but it doesn't feel like it's kept up with cost of living. You know what I mean? It seems like instructors have always been paid £40 to £45 an hour forever, and they still get paid that amount, even though everything else, like you said, has gone up. And I think, like you said, to get here, and again, it's a choice, but in other industries, if you want to be a doctor or a vet or something, you go to university, but you can get a student loan and these other things are funded. In general aviation, you've got to pay for it either yourself or, if you're fortunate, parents have, but someone's had to put their own hand in their pocket. You can't go to the bank and go, I'd like a loan for 80 grand, please. What for? Well, I want to become a pilot. No, probably we won't lend you that money. That's not what happens, is it? So I think it's we need the airfields. We need more pilots. There's a pilot shortage, isn't there, globally? And we need instructors to teach instructors, and we need instructors. But it's this weird kind of thing, isn't it, where somehow the people at the start aren't perhaps getting paid the same. Obviously, as a student, it's great that you only get charged block to blocks. But as an instructor, you're like, so how come I'm at work for 9 hours of the day and only get paid for 3 then? I don't quite understand.
Exactly. And that's the part. Like I did a little bit of research before. I thought, okay, £40 an hour, that's okay. What you don't realise is, you're booked for a 2-hour slot for a 1 hour lesson and you only get paid while the engine's running. So your 20-minute brief on the ground, your debrief, the engine checks, the plane checks at the start of the day, the refuelling, all of the, wiping the plane down at the end of the day, getting everything refueled again and ready. All of that time is your time. And then obviously
it's your time, which is valuable, but also your knowledge. When you're doing the pre-brief and the debrief, it's still knowledge you have to impart. It's not, but really it's freebies, right? Like that's how it, I still don't, again, someone's outside trying to get in there. My brain just goes, who decided this model was the model? I don't know.
It's mad, isn't it? Because you think, £40 an hour is how it's written down. You think, okay, great. But actually it's £20 an hour because it's 2 hours. So £20 an hour, and then it's an hour drive for me to the airfield and then an hour drive back. So if you've only got 1 hour's lesson, you're not really, getting kind of minimum wage. Is by the time you pay for fuel and everything else, it's not. That's the bit that I should have done more research on before I started, I think.
But I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of people are doing it because they love it, don't they? But I think the problem is it's never going to change. Because I was thinking in my head, well, if I'm a really good instructor, then I'll just charge the full time. But then no one's going to want to fly with you, are they? Because they're like, well, it's already expensive. I'm not going to pay essentially double to learn with you because So unless every school decided, hey, we now pay for instructor time as opposed to flying time, but again, that's going to put people off, isn't it? Because
the prices go up.
Yeah. What was going to cost you £8,000 to get your microlight license is now going to cost you 16 because it's doubled, isn't it? So.
Well, it wouldn't double because obviously the main part. So if it's 195 for an hour, for example, and the instructor gets 40 quid of that, the rest, there's hangarage, there's insurance, there's all the other costs, the fuel, whatever. But so it wouldn't necessarily double, but I think to have a lesser rate while you're on the ground, for example, and more when you're in the air or something like that, I don't know. But it's tricky because whenever you ask someone, it seems to be like, yeah, they do it for the love. But to try and do it as a young person trying to get a career and keep yourself going, it's not great. That's why, I need to go back to films the second the film comes up because that's where I get paid. Where it's not enough to keep going, unfortunately. Yeah,
maybe we can solve that one day. Right, so I want to, before we wrap up, so I'm just conscious of your time. I want to do a quick fire round of you. So first thing that comes to mind, as opposed to having a good thought about it. So favourite aircraft?
Oh, in total or microlights?
Anything.
Oh, okay. MiG-15.
Okay. Dream place to fly to?
You're not allowed to, but I don't know how you pronounce it. Zhuangzhuin in China, where it looks like Avatar.
Okay.
Like bits of the land is coming up, so it looks like floating islands. I want to fly around through there. You're not allowed.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Short grass strip or long tarmac runway?
Long tarmac runway. I just quite like tarmac. I don't do it very often. It feels very fancy.
I'm the opposite. I've only been last done grass twice. I'm like, ugh.
It's just grass and it's so bumpy when you come in. So you do a perfect landing and everyone goes, it's a bit bumpy. I'm like, that is the field. That is not me.
Tail wheel or nose wheel?
Nose wheel, 100%. I haven't actually ever flown a tail dragger, but they look really difficult.
Same. Yeah, it's on my list of things to try one day. And then finally, paper chart or iPad?
Paper chart. Everything paper. I'm not a technology person at all. I don't have a computer. There's no screens in my house.
Okay.
I've even got a handwritten checklist.
So I still like the handwritten checklist and things. I'm not a fan of having it on the computer, but it still blows my brain that in modern times you're trying to fly, talk, and unravel a massive map that takes up your whole living room floor and work out what diversion you're supposed to be doing. It's just like, we don't do that in the car. I mean, we can pull over. We can't do that in the plane.
Yeah, I mean, I always followed my map so that I've only got the bit that I need. But no, when I say handwritten checklist, I mean like I've physically handwritten out the checks.
Okay.
And hand those to my students because as every instructor believes that their checklist is the best in the world, so I've rewritten them and finds the best checklist in the world. But I do forget that my handwriting is probably not that legible. So.
What's the most overrated thing in aviation?
Flying somewhere just to have a sandwich. Seems to be what everyone does, is to go to a cafe and have a bacon sandwich. There's so much to do. Yeah. There's so many adventures to have. There's so many cool airfields and weird places.
But a £250 bacon sandwich tastes so good. One word to describe flying.
Speechless.
Cool. So closing question. If someone listening is thinking about learning to fly and they haven't yet done it, what would you say to them?
Do it. Give it a go. It's the most amazing thing you could ever do. Like, do it.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. So I think that's a great place to end. Sammy, thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed the discussion. And if people want to follow kind of what you're doing and learn a bit more about you, is there somewhere they can follow you online? Or if they want to learn to fly with you, how do they get in contact with you as an instructor?
Thank you. If you go on Sammy My Plane Life, that's my Instagram. I am really trying to get sponsorship to fly around the world, so any followers I can get for that, I'd be really, really grateful. And if you DM me, we can sort out some flying lessons if you want to come flying with me. My flying training is always fun and lots of giggles as well as learning lots. So do get in touch if you're interested.
Yeah. I'll put a link to your Instagram in the description.
Thank you.
As well, so do that. So that's it for this episode of Pilots Squawking, the first one. So again, thanks very much. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're on and listening. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you know someone who's into flying, share it with them as well. It'd be really good. And we've got more conversations like this coming from pilots from across aviation, so stay tuned.
Thank you.